Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We are driving around. Excuse the harsh glare again. We're dealing with the sun is coming up part of the day, and I have to drive that direction, which is unfortunate. I can zigzag a little bit. I've noticed... How do I describe this? So we all know that the media lies. We all know that politicians lie. We all know that things are a little messed up. Things are screwy, okay? And we know this. It's not hidden knowledge. People don't like to acknowledge it. And then when you get into arguments with progressives, they will often try to nitpick to a different reality, okay? You know, there was an argument, the Biden creature still hasn't done an actual presser, right? Or an address to Congress assembled, or taking questions in a regular press conference. And, you know, someone pointed this out last week, and there was a progressive argument that extended the timeline out to the, very end of March, and said, well, these presidents have only given one press conference in the first 3 months. And, Trump only gave one official press conference, solo in the White House press conference in his first 3 months in office. And I'm like, wow, you really parsed that. You really, really engineered your statement there, because he did press conferences with questions live at CIA headquarters, at the Pentagon, like different places where he was doing things. He didn't go to the White House briefing room and do one until February, and he didn't do another one until April. And a lot of that had to do with just the media itself. There was actually a refusal. There were attempts to refuse to do press conferences for a while. So remember that. That's an important little bit of information for you. So, of course, the progressive thinks he's won. He thinks he's proven that the Biden creature is fit for office and not avoiding anything, because he played a numbers game and changed the definitions and moved the goalposts to try to prove that another president, who is not the topic, except if you're a progressive, everything is Trump for the rest of your life. So another president who's not the topic did things. And if you narrow the definitions down enough, you can almost say that he didn't do much. And that proves that the Biden creature is somehow good to go. I don't know what he's trying to prove. But we know that the Biden creature is not functional. We know he's not in charge of the government. We know that the election system is not trusted by the majority of Americans. Now, for purposes of censorship on the internet, I'm not saying that anything was fraudulent. I'm not saying anything happened. I'm not talking about the outcome. I'm not saying anything about the outcome. Okay? And there's another Trump-Pence sign. It's March, and there are a surprisingly large number of Trump signs on the ranches out here in ag country. You'd be pretty amazed at how many people are not accepting the results of the election, because, of course, in part, you're not allowed to question, you're not allowed to audit, you're not allowed to know, you're not allowed to verify. That's the problem. The majority of Americans don't believe that the elections are trustworthy, period. Now, there's ways that you react to that, and one of the ways that the progressives react to that is to say, okay, fine, we need to engineer the right answer. And they'll say that publicly. We need to make sure that the right thing happens, the right outcome, and they have determined what they think the right outcome is. And that's a little bit screwy again. That's a little bit dangerous. It makes me very uncomfortable to have people, excuse that, flies. It's not even spring yet and I've got flies, gnats to deal with. It's a little weird to have to deal with a situation where politically a lot of people feel that it's okay to cheat and it's okay if the outcomes are, if things are not trustworthy or honest, as long as you can get the right answer. That's a really bizarre one for me. As a way of operating at a democracy, or a republic, a representative system of government, that's a scary one. It doesn't matter as long as the right answer ends up on top. So we know that the Biden creature isn't running things. We know that Kamala Harris is not running things. We knew that all along. I don't know why. I understand that there's a lot of desire to just have hate and outrage. It's programmed by the media, so the right does it just as bad as the left. So bitching about Kamala Harris is one of the things. And she's not in a position where she can take power. She can be a relatively powerful figurehead. She can have enough power to satisfy some of her psychological needs while being maintained as a figurehead. But let's be real here, okay? She got advancement by serving other people. She's even more unpopular than Elizabeth Warren, and that is crazy because she's awful. She has a really bad record when it comes to just about everything she's done. Really bad record. She's not capable. She's not. You can listen to her talk. You can watch her movements, watch the way she acts, look at her. Not her clothing choices, but why she makes her clothing choices, what she does. You can see that she's not there. She's not that person. She's not going to be the leader of the free world. She's not. The capability's not there. The mindset's not there. None of it is there. All right? You can bitch and moan and complain about previous presidents, Obama, Trump, Bush, but for the most part, they were actually the leader of the free world. You have different styles. Obama was a very apologetic leader who wanted to try to bring the rest of the world up to tell us what to do, and Trump was much more bombastic and much more of an America first kind of leader of the free world. But Kamala Harris, not a chance. Sorry, just not a chance. She's not there. As much as you complain about her on the right and her evil policies and how the world is going to end when she succeeds to the office because Biden's incompetent, she's not going to be the power. She's probably going to flail around and fight that a little bit, but she's not going to be the power. Who is? This is the real question. We no longer have even the face of an elected government running the country, okay? We ran into this with Trump. Trump was a very good example because, he went against the administrative establishment state, the entrenched, non-elected bureaucracy, And they fought him every inch of the way. They had classes on how to fight him publicly. And, well, it shows what was happening. But he was fighting it, okay? He was there. He was a symbol. We can elect a president who is not strictly subservient to the Stasi, to the CIA, to the NSA, to the State Department, and to, people don't like to make the comparisons because our intelligence agencies are different than other nations, but, the power games are still there. And I can appreciate that for a lot of intelligence agencies, the idea of America first is still part of it, but that's not exclusive. That's not always the case. And America first doesn't mean freedom first, doesn't mean liberty first, There's a lot of problems with having your government run by conflicting, warring tribes of State Department intelligence agencies and domestic power brokers. It's not a good way to run anything, any civilization. But at least with Trump, we still had that proof that you could elect someone who tried to run, who was involved in running things. It was a little adversarial. It was more adversarial than it needed to be. For all of Trump's art of the deal, he utterly and miserably failed to deal with the intelligence agencies and State Department cronies. And, he was in a no-win situation there because none of your America First policies, none of your freedom-oriented policies work with those groups. But he failed that way to some extent. But now we don't even have the illusion anymore that anything's going on. The Biden creature is not in charge. No way in hell. Kamala Harris isn't even being briefed on what's going on. No way in hell. So what's the deal? Who's running it? What does that mean for you? Where does that go? Well, as long as these people maintain the awareness that they need to not fuck with the people too hard, just ignore them. Work outside of their scope, work on the edges of society, do your black markets, live your life, do everything on a cash basis, report nothing, record nothing, don't use your phone for anything. At some point you're going to have to stop using Cash App and Venmo because the government's going to be able to get at that. Anything on your cell phone. More secure transaction systems is a good idea, and there's ways to game that. Cash cards. There's ways to game that. Look at the scammers and what they do, and realize that can all be used honestly as well. So, what do you do? Now, in terms of the longer game, the liberty game, human versus inhuman game, maintaining your independence and doing things is actually a big deal. Vote. It may or may not matter, but at least you get the idea. Someone's going to pay attention to who is actually voting and what it actually means. Because there are people in the establishment state, administrative state, they're not listened to. But there are people who are smart enough to realize that if 90% of the population is against you, at some point in time, you're going to have to do something to appease them. Okay? Dan Carlin talked about this for decades, okay? It was a really big deal. He does hardcore history. He also used to do a podcast called Common Sense. He may do it again now, coming up soon, because he had a mental break. And that's what I'm going to actually mention here for just a moment at the end of the video. Is he talked about it for decades, that the establishment, the corrupt establishment, needs to understand that the people do have the sovereign power to actually remove them, to vote them out, to get rid of them, to act in a way to get rid of him. The problem is that he wasn't expecting Trump. I think he would have been really happy with Bernie Sanders, 2016 Bernie Sanders, because it would have fit his model of how that's supposed to work. But he was really, Brexit, Trump, the nationalist movements in response to eradicating the middle class and liberty and everything else in Europe. Dan Carlin did not deal with those issues very well at all. It was exactly what he'd been predicting and advocating for decades. He didn't like the way it turned out because he wanted it to be happy progressive land, not happy independent land. He just wanted everyone's idea of independence to become progressive. And I'm not trying to be mean to Dan. He's not a two-dimensional figure or anything. He's a great, very smart, intelligent guy, but he could not maintain his composure to do his podcasts during the Trump era, and it's very sad because I think he could have informed people of a lot of stuff that was going on that the media just flat out lied about. And that's one of the things that he gave up on, was the media reports were so bad that you know that if CNN is reporting it, that it's not true, but that something has happened, something that you need to look at has happened. And that's where we're at. And that's disconcerting. It's difficult to deal with. So what do? What you do is live your life. Live on the edges. Try to, I say black market, samizdat. I use these phrases a lot, but work outside of the establishment system as much as possible, because you need to maintain that network. You need to maintain that side economy. You need to be part of that global, national, regional, alternate information and economic structure, because the establishment isn't doing a very good job for people, but also for themselves. You need to have that backup, okay? But for the gold stackers, it's all about having, some gold coins, some silver coins. It's their version of backup. There's nothing wrong with it, except the problem with the precious metal thing is it's a zero-sum game, and it doesn't allow for a creation of wealth, and that's a different topic completely. We've had economic crashes because of a shortage of precious metals that didn't match our production increases as we created more wealth through technology in the past. Something to think about. But, you need to have your alternatives, okay? Alternatives, cash instead of a card. That's actually an alternative. Maintain some cash. Other things, there are things that you can trade. There are things that are collectible. That's an economic crash idea. That's not what I'm really getting at. But having cash cards, having gift cards, having ways to do economic activity without relying on the bank system, the establishment banking system. Having ways to talk to each other without relying on Facebook. That's a really important one, okay? Facebook censors people. Facebook takes people off. You could be removed. You could be removed for being part of a gun club at this point. People are being removed from YouTube semi-permanently until the threat of insurrection is over, according to the CEO of YouTube. Not a good idea. You need to be able to operate on the edges. You need to be able to operate as an independent member of society, not as a dependent member, not as a dependent of the establishment. This is the key thing that you need to do right now. We're not at a stage where active revolution is necessarily a good idea. I'm not going to say when that stage is, if it has or hasn't begun. That's totally a different situation. But the establishment is running roughshod over you And being able to play that game and stay outside of it, not be dependent on the game, is very important. So, maintain your cash businesses. Do things without receipts. Talk to people and advocate for cash discounts and stuff. Use alternate forms of communication. Use message boards, paper message boards, send letters. Do you have a notebook with a backup for phone numbers, email addresses, postal addresses of your friends? Get one. Maintain that. It's potentially pretty important. Stay sideways.